Hello, so today we are going to be with Chase Warrington, Head of Business Development to Todoist, the company that creates the app Todoist that we here love. Chase is a remote work enthusiast, right? And today we will talk about how to manage distributed things using Todoist and also impactful things teams can do to stay productive while working from home. So thanks for your time, Chase. It's so good to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, and I hope I'll be able to offer some good insights. I am definitely a remote work enthusiast, and try to show people how it doesn't have to be so painful, and how to make it a good experience for everybody involved. So hopefully, some insights from what we do at Doist will be useful.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're gonna have a lot of insights. I would start asking you, what is productivity to you? What it means to you? Because it's so different to everybody. What productivity means to you?
Yeah, my initial mindset goes to like tons of cliches, like work smarter, not harder, and more is less, and quality over quantity. And so I'll throw together all these cliches to somehow create the final product, which is like, I just think that productivity is really getting the most out of your day with the least amount of input. And that's not to say like lots of tasks being accomplished necessarily, or lots of projects being completed, but it's really just about like setting yourself up for the long haul, and a sustainable way of creating a system for yourself and your teammates, and putting that to use to have like a very well balanced day, so that a day, week, month, year, so that you can do it for the long term. So yeah, that's kind of my like philosophy. Like it's like, don't try to squeeze too much out of every minute and every hour and every day, but put together a nice system with some intentionality behind it
Yeah,
to ultimately have this like system that works for you.
I totally agree with you. More about quality than quantity, right? It's more
Yes,
about that.
absolutely. We're both minimalists in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I like those kind of talks because we can get like the similar approach. So Chase, I know you are American and right now you are calling Spain home, right? Is that right?
That's right.
Uh,
Yes.
tell
Been
us,
here for 3 years now.
yeah, 3 years. That's a long time. Tell us a little bit about this remote work journey. How did you start it?
Yeah, so a little bit of background on Doist for anybody that doesn't know the company. We are a fully remote first company, so we have around 100 employees now that are spread across 30 something different countries, and we don't hire based on location at all. So everybody's allowed to work from where they want and when they want. We don't really involve like even time zones in our hiring process. So this was something that I really wanted. Like I wanted to be able to move to different countries and live in different places and have that not really affect my work. And that really was like baked into me since I was in university and in college. I thought like that's what I really ultimately want. But at that time, location independence wasn't really like a thing. Like that was 12 years ago. And I think the best you could hope for was like maybe a little bit of work from home, except in maybe some really weird cases. But I was able to get a kind of a remote job out of university, like just put all my eggs in that basket. Like that's what I want. And at the time, though, I was still geographically restricted. Like I had to live in a certain part of the U.S. and be able to travel into the office for meetings and stuff sometimes. But um, I really just like from the beginning said like I want to work remotely. That's what's most important to me, and then I'll prioritize that, and then everything else will come together. And then that interest in working from home, working remote grew into eventually like I just have to be location independent, and I've got to make that happen. And since then, I've been able to live in a half a dozen different countries and experience different cultures and travel while working, and it's been just like a real dream come true for me.
And how it changes like 20 years and everything, technology, the way work developed. And right now in 2020, many companies were forced to go remote, right? And
Yeah.
but to at Doist, you are totally remote first, and the team is already distributed around the globe, as you mentioned. So how many countries is the team distributed in?
I believe it's somewhere between 30 and 35, somewhere in that range. Yeah.
And how many employees do Doist have?
We're about 100, and we have about 20 or 30 freelancers as well. So about 100 full-time employees.
Oh, see, it's a lot of people in different time zones, different languages, and many challenges that come from that. So um, my I'm always curious about what teams use to coordinate this. What tools? Of course, Doist and Todoist and Doist are part.
There's a few that are pretty obvious.
Yes. But what is part of your system today? And do you feel that you and the team need to try new things on the system frequently, especially because there's so many productivity tools and communication tools? So how do you feel about the system and the changing of it?
Yeah, like one thing that's really interesting is we're in the startup world, which is like a constantly evolving world. Like we're producing software products, and we like to think we're producing products that work for us as a remote team, and then therefore hopefully they work for other remote teams. But like our needs as a team have changed dramatically. Like what worked for us when we were 5 employees didn't work when we were 20 employees, and what worked when we were 20 didn't work when we were 100. And so these things are really cool in a way because they've sparked, for instance, Twist is a communication tool that we use, and previously we were using Slack to run our team communication, but Slack, as we realized, like wasn't really working for us because of our remote nature. We needed something more asynchronous at its core, meaning like we needed something that didn't rely on instant communication, because we have people, some of my teammates are 12 hours away from me. So there's no way we can expect instant communication from each other. Right. So that worked fine when everybody was in a similar location or everybody was in Europe. But as we started to grow, we realized like, okay, for instance, Slack isn't working for us. We need a different tool. And we ended up building Twist. And so what's really awesome about that is like these kind of things come from a real need, and you see your team evolve and grow and try new tools. We're constantly trying new tools that work for our growing needs. So it's an evolution. Like it doesn't just like it hasn't been like one decision and then we just ran with it. It changes over time.
Constantly, yeah. And I think that's the biggest struggle, right? Communication, how you send tasks and communicate needs to your team. Do you think that's the biggest struggle on working with distributed teams, communication?
It's generally if you separate kind of like work, if you're thinking about remote teams, distributed teams, and you separate to kind of the personal part of your life and the work part of your life, the number one work part of your life that generally comes up when remote workers are surveyed, that is sort of like a challenge for them, is almost always communication. The personal side, the personal challenge is almost always disconnection, like disconnecting from your devices and figuring out when you're going to take time off and things like that. But so, yeah, I mean, like actually like statistics show that communication is the number one challenge that distributed teams face on a pretty regular basis. If you want to fact check me on that, anybody, go to the I believe Buffer just released their 2021 State of Remote Work report, and I think for like the 3rd or 4th year in a row, communication was the number one problem.
Yeah, and especially like with this instant messengers, WhatsApp in Brazil, it's a big thing, and Slack, it's so noisy. And
Yes.
sometimes when you have flexible hours working remotely, you receive a message at 11 and you feel the urge to reply it. So that's what I like to is because you have like, I'm not online.
Yeah. Yeah. We purposely left these things out of the product. And some people are like, hey, where's my presence indicator? Like, I need to know when my teammates are online. And you're like, if you ask yourself, like, why? why do you need to know if they're online? Like, maybe they're doing something much more important than responding to your question.
Yeah, I think it's very important for us to mention that, because new remote teams tend to emphasize in those kind of inputs like hours worked or emails sent or calls made, messages, like response time most of the time, right? As a measurement of productivity. But we know that like constant interruptions, busy work, overwork, this leads to burnout. And how do you think, how do you manage that, the team to focus on those outputs, the results that actually creates value and meaning for the company?
Yeah, we're so much on the same page here, and it's amazing because like in some of the consulting I do, or like talking with remote team leaders who are, or companies who are thinking about going remote, almost always like the first question is, how do I track my employees? Like now that they're working from home or they're working, distributed, how do I know that they're working? And I just find it like kind of funny that it's such a consistent question, because the inclination is, let's go towards tracking their hours, tracking their emails. Like I want to know when their mouse moves. Literally, like if their mouse doesn't move in
What they are
5 seconds, like that means they're not working, right? So like I find it really funny, because if you challenge that and you say like, well, what really matters? Like, is it the number of emails sent, or is it the number of deals closed, or the revenue generated, or the projects completed? And so if we do not give any credit to activity. We don't even track hours. So we've got people spread across 30 something countries, and like we don't know when people are working, when they're not. But what we do know is that at the end of the week or the month or whatever, like they've either have or haven't done the work that was expected, and that's what really matters. And like I've told people on my team, like I would love it if they could get all the work done in 2 hours a day and then take the rest of the day off. That would be amazing. But
for everybody.
oftentimes it takes more. It takes more, but it doesn't really matter how many hours it takes. It's like the end result is what really matters. So we focus on the outputs and almost zero on the inputs.
Cool, cool. I think, yeah, I think that's how we should be most of the times with um, those kind of flexible work. But how to make sure those that the team is moving towards the goals, like, or make sure that they are actually kind of working, because not like following the hours. Is it possible to track that performance using to-do lists, for example? How do you see that?
Yeah, I can show, like I'll do a quick screen share
Cool.
if I can. Let's see here. So yeah, I'll just do a quick screen share. Like, well, actually, before I go to that, let me preface. So we created, like I told you, we're like always evolving and like figuring out how to make remote work and optimizing this. And as we grew, we realized like we really need a system in place for project management. And we tried lots of different systems. We read articles and case studies on what other teams were doing, and eventually kind of picked like developed our own system, which we call the do system. Do goes with Doist. It's Todoist. It fits, but it means Doist objectives. And basically, what we're doing are 4-week sprints. So a project is called a do, and every month we have a set of do's, projects that are being completed. And those projects are being completed by squads, which are made up of cross-functional teams from across the company. So an example of this might be like, we want to redo our an integration that we have with Todoist. Like we're going to redo the Google Calendar integration. And so that might involve one developer from the Apple team, and one from the Android team, and one from the web team, and a marketing person, and a finance person. And so we bring these people together, and they work on this project for 4 weeks. And those are led by one person, which we call a squad leader. And the squad leader is ultimately responsible for delivering the end result, which should be the completed integration in this case. So we're mapping these out like 2 and 3 weeks, 2 and 3 months in advance, usually using Todoist, and then simply saying at the end of the day, like, did we complete the project or not? And so I'll just show real quick kind of what that looks like. Yes, I'm a dark mode person. So you could see just really quick, like we have like some upcoming things. We have our in progress ones. We've got ones that, you know, that have been shipped. And so each of these tasks has a lot of content inside each one. Maybe some notes, links to specs that share more details, links to twist threads. But the point of it all is like this is how we measure productivity. Like, do these dues get completed? And then we can track the financial metrics of them later.
Good. And if you want a log, you can always check by the admin account, the log of everything. Like this member crossed this many tasks during the week. And then you do kind of a review on that kind of progress by the employees.
Yeah, we do. So, well, we do a review. So the way like the team hierarchy is kind of set up, we have like I have my direct reports on my team, and I have a one-on-one, like a project with them in Todoist. And so we share tasks back and forth throughout the month, and we have a once a month 1 hour meeting. Some people find that really interesting. Like I see the employees on my team like for 1 hour per month, literally, that's it. And it's a little bit weird to think about when you're used to seeing people 40 hours a week, but yeah, I see them face to face 1 hour per month. And so but using that Todoist project, we add tasks that need to be discussed during that one-on-one meeting. Most of it can be kind of hashed out in Twist before then, usually done asynchronously, but anything that we can't get done in Twist, we have in this project. And then during that time, we're also like measuring, I wouldn't necessarily say productivity, but like progress on things. So we might have a task with one of my direct reports that says like, let's review the outcome of the partnership with so-and-so from 3 months ago. And like, please report on that, something like that.
Okay. I see. I think this communication part is always something to discuss, because one of the biggest problems that we see in going remote is to recreate the real-time interactions that we have in the office. And it's something to discuss, like especially in this reality that we're living right now. And I've been talking a lot, and I've been reading a lot from Doist about asynchronous communication, and I'm totally inspired by what your culture is doing. And can you explain to us a little bit on how to apply this async communication in these distributed things, and how you use Todoist or Doist for that? Because you have this 101, but everything is inside Todoist and Doist, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we do live in Todoist. I sort of cut my answer short on the last one, saying because that hierarchy of like my team and how we do things internally, like we have a biz dev, my team's business development team. So we have like a project for that where we have like sort of our roadmap for the business development team. And then I have a one-on-one project with each direct report. And then we have like the dues that I talked about earlier. We have projects for each of those dues. And then we have like the company roadmap, which is available to everybody. So there's a lot living in Todoist. Like it's definitely where the work takes place at Doist. But the communication, as you alluded to, takes place in Twist. And that's all like when I think about like what makes us work well, and asynchronous communication is like at the core of it. We rely on meetings so little and so rarely that everything, it's sort of seen as like, why would we have a meeting? Like it needs to be, it's almost like they're toxic. So we really rely heavily on, putting everything in a transparent central place. And the reason for that is like everybody's spread around the globe. So it has so many different effects. Like if we were communicating in more of like a real time setting, people would be forced to be addicted to their devices and on their devices at all hours of night. It would really affect people's family lives. It would make people think that they needed to respond right away, which we prefer quantity or quality over quantity. So, you don't need to just give us your first thought. I would rather wait 24 hours for a much better thought. So it promotes this culture where people can disconnect. They can respond with real, thoughtful, insightful comments. And we get away from like thinking that like talking and chatting is working, and it's more about like actually working and getting those outputs done. So yeah, that's like, it's very much so at the core, and Twist was built with asynchronous communication in mind from the beginning.
Yeah, and it's totally about culture, right? We have seen a lot of companies trying to implement the flexible hours and this kind of async communication, but it doesn't change when you don't change the roots of the culture, right? It's more looking to mental health and quality, time quality with family and communities. We are seeing this movements of people going to small cities and to preserve the spaces. So it's all about culture.
Yes. Yeah, it is. And I mean, like I mentioned this with your first question, like it's about the long haul too. Like Duist doesn't have an extra exit strategy, so we're not looking to get our user base really big and then sell and make a bunch of money and go sit on the beach. Like we're hoping to be in this for the long haul and build a sustainable company that outlasts our time there. So to do that, like you really have to be thoughtful about like, are we going to do this mad sprint where everybody works 70-hour weeks and maybe there's a big paycheck at the end of the day, or are we going to set this up for the long haul and enjoy ourselves along the way? And that the latter is working better for us, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. I have here the pyramid, the communication pyramid on Tours. I found it really, really nice. And can you explain us the logic behind that? I would Let me show it here. Second. It's very interesting because how you promote social connections and interactions, like being at like the root, it's totally async. But how
Yeah.
you maintain the social interactions here?
Yeah, this is a really great graphic to explain like how we actually work. Because there is a place for synchronous communication. And there is a place for like something in between where you're like sort of collaborating in a more real-time setting, but it doesn't necessarily have to be instant. And so this really like working from the bottom up, like Twist is where we do the core of our communication. It's where it's mainly 95% asynchronous, and it's where a lot of thought processes go and things like that, and where we kind of like discussion happens in Twist. And then in products like Todoist or GitHub, Dropbox Paper, Marvel, Google Docs, this is where there's sort of this like in between area where we might be like collaborating on, like, let's say we're creating a new landing page. Now that we've decided we're going to create a new landing page in Twist, and we kind of have an idea of what it's about, we're going to go to Marvel or Google Docs or something to spec that out. Start writing the copy, start creating the illustrations. And in these places, people can comment, they can share their thoughts, they can give feedback, we can make edits. So it's happening in like the things that tie these things together is they're transparent tools. So they allow people to peer in, participate if they want, but you don't have to participate. You're not forced to, and you're also not getting notifications every time someone else makes a comment or whatever. You kind of opt in, or you're only getting asked to do something like with an intentional like an intentional action. And that's very important, because if you have 100 people that are all getting notified, like picture like a reply all email chain where everybody's replying all the time, and you have like 70 emails in your inbox, and you don't know, you have to read all of them just to find if you need to do one thing, and often you don't. That's very problematic and super inefficient. So all these tools allow for that. And then like occasionally we do things synchronously. Like I have my one-on-one meetings, sometimes have team meetings, we do social events, like some things we call like casual hangouts or group get-togethers where we have just like have a coffee together, like over a virtual world. So building like a actual team camaraderie and culture does happen. And then going like one step further, we actually have in normal times, non-COVID times, we have annual get-togethers where we get together for a week and really bond and spend time together. And those are super missed right now.
Yeah,
We
I
really
imagine.
crave that.
I imagine because like you mentioned 70% of your communication and works async. That's a
I
lot.
would say so. Yeah. I would say like strictly like it could even be higher.
Even higher. Yeah, that's like impressive. And how since you have so so many communication async and not a lot of meetings, how to get the most out of these meetings? Like you used to do is to have with the agenda, next steps. How do you do that?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You can probably imagine like we like if I have my one-on-ones with my team, like we have a task to prepare the agenda like a week ahead of time. And that's key is like having the reminder that hey, we have a meeting coming up, please prepare the agenda. If there isn't an agenda, then we cancel the meeting. So again, like the meetings are toxic sort of thing. But yeah, then we already have a prepared agenda for each meeting, and actionables go into the Todoist as the meeting's happening in real time, so we can create our follow-ups and then check-ins like on if the meeting was a success or not. So yeah, it all lives in Todoist, which probably isn't too big of a surprise.
Yeah, no, not at all. But I again, I'm very inspired all the time with the culture of Doist and how do you always show like this movement of believing social interactions and async communication and mental health inside the workplace. That how you help the team to set these boundaries and preserve value what is important, because sometimes I don't know, employees came from other culture and have these beliefs and ways of doing it, and then are they surprised by the culture, and how do you set those boundaries? And I think re-educate people like a lot of time.
Yeah.
How do you do?
I can say like it's so it really starts with like the leadership of the company and what you value and what you show that you value. And so I can say like coming from like I worked for more of like a typical American company that was very you know like you expected to work hard, and work hard play hard was like one of
Very
the
American.
core values. Yeah, exactly. And it was very like is a amazing company to work for, especially by American standards. We there was a value on work life balance, but you were still very much appreciated for like putting in long hours, and you know you get credit for or maybe even expected to kind of work on the weekends. The quicker you responded, the better. People that went in on the weekends and worked a little bit were like seen as like, that's what you do. And that's like, those are the ones that are going to rise to the top. So we really start by like not congratulating that type of activity, and even kind of like condemning it a little bit. Like when you're not working for the weekend, like if we see that you're working on the weekend, we're kind of like, hey, what are you doing? It's the weekend. If you're working long hours, or if it's apparent that you're kind of burning out a little bit, like we want to call that out. We don't reward the behavior for like showing that you're just doing a lot of activity. It's about the outputs. So clocking in early, showing up early or showing up late, or doesn't really get you any bonus points. And I think it kind of like starts there. It's like, and then communicating, like as leaders in the company, like communicating how important your free time is for you, and how when you're disconnected, like you're truly disconnected. And when you're on vacation, like you truly don't log in and check your email or whatever. So it's very very much so like baked into the culture.
Cool. And I have one last question, because if it was for me, I'll have like 30, but I'm gonna choose one. What do you recommend for those teams that are starting to work with distributed things, like after this reality of the pandemic and flexible hours? What do you recommend to start and to take care of?
Oh, can I do two?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So the first is something you mentioned earlier, which is not to try to recreate the in-office setting. So little things like just keep in mind that your workplace has changed, and there's no need to try to completely replicate what you were doing previously. You are going to have to try to change some things. That's going to mean some new tools, some new processes, some new habits. A classic example that I like to use is like, you're used to in an office, like knocking on someone's door real quick and saying, "Hey, do you have 5 minutes? Like, I just want to ask you a couple questions real quick." And like, this should not happen in a virtual world. Or like, "Hey, let's all jump in the conference room really quick and, let's brainstorm on this." Like, you're going to have to change the way you go about those types of activities. So get intentional about that and really think through the process. Talk to an expert, talk to people who have experience doing this, and figure out what works for them. That's one. And then the other is something I referenced earlier, which is like really default to trust, and don't try to implement some sort of surveillance state where you monitor every little thing that every employee is doing. Like really default to trusting your team, and watch the outputs come to fruition, and then just work towards that, like, as opposed to trying to track all the activities. Trust your team's doing what they're supposed to be, and monitoring what really matters, and adjusting where needed. Don't waste valuable hours and resources on like tracking details that don't really matter.
All about trust, right? You give responsibilities, give people freedom.
Yes. Let people live, they'll be happier to work for you, and people are going to be, I mean, there's so much data that shows that remote workers and people who get this opportunity to work from where they want, they really want to hold on to that opportunity. And the biggest challenge that you're probably going to have is making sure that they don't work too much and burn out. They're actually going to be more productive. They're going to work more hours. And those two things combined, more time in and more output per hour, results to really great things for the company. So it's just about tempering that more than anything else.
It means more retention, right? Happy people want to stay in the same place.
They do. Yeah, exactly.
Well, like, so many important tips. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. And how can people connect to your work? What do you do inside Duis, outside Duis? Tell us.
Yeah, the best place to find me is probably for my work stuff is on my LinkedIn. So you can find me searching Chase Warrington, and yeah, and then on our Doist blog, I contribute to the blog occasionally, but more importantly, we have 100 people at the company who are contributing real remote work, dedicated information to the blog, and it's doist.com/blog, and packed with tons of really good information.
Great. Thank you so much, Dace. All the links are going to be here on the description of this video. And if you have any questions, please down below. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much. And I see you in the next opportunity.
Thank you, Gabriela.